I think anybody can put themselves in this situation the second you start imagining losing someone who's very dear to you, especially your child. Like if that, it's like, how, like, I can't survive that. My son told me recently that at a time he was worried that he was going to lose me too. I do remember then just realizing that I don't want to die and I want to live. So I made a lot of changes after that.
Welcome to our podcast, Ordinary People with Extraordinary Stories. I'm Chana Weisberg. Today's episode, you will be introduced to an incredible woman, Perla Zaltzman, who's a shlucha in Niagara Falls. Perla lost her daughter in a tragic drowning accident. And what I really loved about this interview was how real and raw Perla is about her experiences. She's obviously still grieving, even though it's still over 6-7 years since the episode has happened, because really grief is something that never ends in terms of the sadness that we feel about losing a child. But she discusses also in those moments what she learned and what she discovered about herself and what changes she needed to make in her own family life and in her own personal identity in order to grow as a person. Perla, thank you so much for coming and joining us today. So you grew up in France, and that's why I guess you speak French so well?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I guess it's not my first language because I first spoke Yiddish. So my parents are not French. My father's from Morocco. His parents were shluchim there in Casablanca.
Wow.
And they were one of the first shluchim of the Rebbe sent in 1951.
1951. Wow, that's a long time ago.
Yeah,
wow.
1950. I hope I'm accurate.
Yeah.
But it was either 1950 or 1951. And my parents, my mother's from Israel, from Kfar Chabad,
wow.
and they're both both sets of grandparents originate from Russia. They're Chabad for generations, and so my one set of grandparents settled in Israel. That's where my mother was born. One set of grandparents settled and became shluchim in Morocco, and then my parents got married and were set to also
to
do
France.
the Rebbe, and the Rebbe sent them to France, and that's where I was born and raised.
So is like, now that you live in Canada, you live in Niagara Falls, actually. What was it? Was it different growing up? Like, is France different than America or Canada?
Very different.
Very different.
Very
in what
different.
way?
Yeah, it was I had a hard time acclimating first to Canada. In so many ways, like culturally. I grew up in the city, but I still always like the countryside and suburbs. So that part wasn't. People always ask me, "Oh, from Paris to Niagara Falls, that's such a big change." But for me, the suburb, calm, and countryside is my thing. So that didn't really matter to me so much. It's more the people, the culture. Even now, like like in France now, everything's closed down because it's August.
So August, everything closes?
Yeah, people go on vacation. Like the summer is, and here people like don't really have the same culture of rest and play and vacationing there.
I guess the work-life balance is different. It's like very different. Oh, wow. Interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah. And consumerism, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. Consumerism.
Yeah. Capital. Like I really, here it's a lot about having more and, having big houses and a very comfortable lifestyle and 2 cars. And it's a lot of comfort, which I'm enjoying, a comfortable lifestyle that's pretty, common here. Like it's calm, and there it's more stressful, but it's more about, there's a very big culture of eating out, of being with people, of spending time drinking coffee, not just taking a coffee on the go. And I miss that, just be and resting and
the rest. Interesting. I didn't know that. So that's very interesting. So not only was there like a culture shock when you came to America or to North America, but then you also ended up on shluchas in Niagara Falls. And that itself is completely a different lifestyle. So how did that feel?
So I came here for the shlichus. I didn't kind of ended up here.
Right, right.
Like we originally actually wanted to go open Chabad in Normandy. There was no Chabad in Deauville and the north of
Oh,
France because I
wow.
do like the countryside, and
Right.
it was perfect to combine shlichus and opening a Chabad house. And there
Is that also, is Normandy also a tourist area or no?
it is, yes. It's
It
very
is.
it's very touristy, but there is people all year round as well, and
Uh-huh.
definitely on weekends all year
Uh-huh.
round. So yeah, that didn't work out because my husband, yeah, the French culture didn't really sit well with him.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I realized that there's going to be some challenges, like it was going to be, more logistically like difficult, and the anti-Semitism was a little harsh for him. I was
Right.
used to it. Um,
Right.
Also, I'm not visibly Jewish, so I didn't
Right.
encounter it as much as he did while he was there. Because we did live there for a little bit, and we had our first son there, and we started his French residency papers.
Oh,
And
wow.
it's during that process of French residency that he realized, they were telling him, "Don't, you cannot have your kippah on the picture," and he's like, "I don't have," like he had it just in the back, and you can't even see it. And like, well, we know. And after a whole day of waiting for the paper for the lineups and everything, and they wouldn't take his application because they thought that maybe
Mm.
there is a kippah back there, and he's like, "I can't. This cannot
Wow.
be our life."
Interesting.
So that's when.
Wow. So instead of ending up in Normandy, which was close to your family and close to, to what you knew and what you grew up with, you chose to live instead. You chose to go in Shlichus instead to Niagara Falls. What's it like? I know we always used to go in the summers to Niagara Falls, such a touristy place. What's your Shlichus like in there?
So the Shlichus there has a lot of tourism, and the truth is that when we first checked out Niagara Falls, we thought, oh, like yeah, it's great, it's a tourist area, like that's for some reason a Chabad house that I was excited of serving, like a demographic I was excited of servicing through our Chabad house, and we when we first came, it was very buzzy and busy. We saw Clifton Hill. I was 20 at a
Mm.
time, and those I was excited with all the
Wow.
lights and and the noise and the excitement. And I was like, okay, great. We're going to open up here. We'll do a lot of miftzaim, like by the falls. And we moved at the end, I mean, the middle of September of 2005, right before Rosh Hashanah. So our first it was right before Rosh Hashanah, but we didn't even have beds yet. So we went to Toronto for Rosh Hashanah, and we came back. Like our first holiday there was Sukkot, and we realized that there are not many tourists, Jewish tourists, around the falls. Then it was okay. This is not exactly what we imagined. Like with a lulav in hand, like it was hard like to even find people, and we also realized then that there's a community, and we did a small community sukkah party there, and we realized that there are no tourists in October. I mean, not
No
many, like it
tour.
was not. Yeah,
So the tourist season is just in the summer, you're saying, and
yeah,
that's
it was
it. And
mostly in the summer. And
right.
so when we
So
started,
how big is the community there?
it's quite small. It's a small regional Jewish community, which used to be a lot bigger 50, 60 years ago.
Hmm.
And now, I don't know the numbers, maybe 200, 300, 400 families. I don't know.
Hmm.
And like it's also transient, and there's a lot more people now moving from Toronto or,
Hmm.
places that
Hmm.
where housing is hard to afford. Um, and yeah, like there is, it's a very small community, but big enough to have a sense of community and have some infrastructure. Like we have a Hebrew school, small Hebrew school,
Wow.
small camp. Uh,
Nice.
yeah. And we also do Brock University. We service the Jewish student population at Brock, Chabad at Brock. And that actually is very active. Like I feel like a lot of our energy year round, time and energy goes to be there for the Jewish students at Brock, and we really love that part of our shlichus.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So, what, like, how did you get used to all this? There's so much change. You were so young. You said you were 20 years old when you moved there. It
Mhm.
must have been a lot of transition, a lot of struggle, a lot of challenge going to a small, something that you weren't thinking that it was, and developing how you could service the community. How did you deal with all that change?
Uh, well, change was gradual, and dealing with change was, I mean, in a way, we were young and adaptable and
Mm,
very passionate about,
mm,
you know, doing something and creating something for the community. And like realizing that tourism is not all year round and it's community work was a great change in a way.
mm.
Because we were able to build relationships with people who live there all year round and make a
Sure,
difference.
sure.
So it was very rewarding, like especially whenever we did teens programs and the relationships. Like for me, it was a lot. I really enjoyed the relationships
Mm,
that we created in the community. A lot of them became very close friends, family friends. My closest people like are in this
mm,
community, and at the same time, I'm glad that most of the year um, our focus is on community and students, because also I realized that tourism, it's a different kind of I can't imagine that we would have done this all year round, but we do it. I mean, in the summer it's mainly my husband like who takes care of the tourists in Niagara,
nice. Mm,
and he's really done an amazing job building up the capacity infrastructure and making people love being here when they are here, like
mm.
by having access to services, kosher food, Shabbat meals.
I
Like,
I know we went there once to visit back to Toronto to visit, and of course we stopped in Niagara Falls. He was amazing. He was so welcoming and so
yes, he loves the
so
people.
helpful. Yeah,
Yeah, and
he's
he likes
really
the diversity. I mean, there's a lot. That's actually something really beautiful about the tourist part of it is that we are exposed to uh, a
so many
diversity of
different Jewish
Jewish
people.
people from
Right.
all backgrounds, from all levels of observance, and the one common denominator is that they feel strongly about being Jewish and wanting to be together with
Jewish.
the community, and that's
Sure.
very touching and inspiring and connecting.
Sure.
Yes,
Wow.
but that takes a lot of work.
Right, I'm sure. So I want to move on. In 2015, tragedy struck your family. Can you tell us a little about it?
Yes.
Hmm.
Um, what would you like to know? I need help getting into it.
Okay, so your daughter Musya
Hmm.
um, drowned unfortunately in an accident. Um, what was it like? Well, I mean, the tragedy must have been so overwhelming. The pain was so overwhelming. What was it like in the first little while afterwards? How did you deal with it?
Um, I mean, the first little while we were very broken. Um, yeah, just very, very broken, very helpless and hopeless about our future. And yeah, it just felt, I don't think we could think really. It was surviving physically,
Hmm.
um, like
Just day by day, you
breathing,
mean?
breathing.
Breathing.
Yeah, breathing, staying alive, like taking care of our of basic needs, which was not always easy. And then I also focused a lot on the kids, the surviving kids, just to make sure that they're okay and they have a life. And
How
I
how many
pushed
children
myself.
did you have at that point?
I had two older boys, Mandel and Daniel, who were 10 and 8, and
Hmm.
Musia, who was 6, and Pesia, who was 2.5, almost 3. And I was
Hmm.
expecting Hannah, who's I was 2 months pregnant when that happened, so she was born
Oh wow, wow,
7 months later,
wow,
actually on Musia's birthday.
wow.
Yeah,
On Musya's birthday, she was born.
yeah.
Oh my,
And
wow,
also my son
incredible.
after. My son, who was born a year later, was born on Musia's birthday. So my two posthumous children were born on Musia's birthday.
Oh, wow. That's
Yeah,
incredible.
valid data.
Wow. How did you help your children to deal with the tragedy? How did you speak to them about it?
Uh, and I would just were very open about our grief, and also, yeah, like just felt like um, acknowledging,
Right.
yeah, acknowledging the grief and the pain and the worry about what's going to be, and at the same time trying to reassure them as much as I can that we're going to be okay. And I try to show
Right.
them.
What do you mean by worry about what's going to be?
Um, it was very hard to imagine um, that life can continue. Like when this is about like I think anybody can put themselves in this situation. The second you start imagining losing someone who's very dear to you, especially your child, like if that, it's like
Sure.
how like I can survive that.
Right. Of course.
And I think
Of course.
my son told me recently that um, at a time he was worried that he was going to lose me too.
Wow. Was that because of your grief? Because you were so much grieving? Yeah. Sure. So,
And physically, I was yeah, in and out of the hospital, like just um, like my body was not keeping up well. Like with,
well,
and I
you
was
said you were
pregnant.
you were pregnant 2 months.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. So
And
I had
coping
a lot
with
of,
pregnancy and that.
yes, my body
Oh my
was
gosh.
collapsing, and eventually, it's really I ended up in the ICU 4 years. Like I mean, I don't know when it was, I don't know, not 2019, 2018, I think, or 2017. So 3.5 years later, I really collapsed. All
Collapse
my
physically.
Yeah,
Wow.
I mean, I didn't realize. I just thought I was dehydrated, so I went to the hospital for an IV. I just said I just need IV fluids. I'm completely dehydrated, and they said, "Oh no, you're admitted. We're taking you to the ICU. You have blood clots in your lungs and infections every like my and all my organs were not working well, and it was very scary. My mother flew in right away from France, and it was we didn't tell many people. We didn't want to scare people, but it was a very scary time for me to not know if I'm going to survive.
Wow. And this was 3 years after must
Yeah,
you passed away?
I think so.
So you
Three or
just
four
help
years.
the
20. I think
trauma
it was.
that was in
Yeah,
your body, is that it?
yeah.
Your body was just not functioning because of the grief and the pain that you had gone through. It was just not processed, is that it?
Um, yeah, like the doctors couldn't, like, which is very rare for medical doctors to real, like, to sometimes acknowledge that what's happening in our body is really, psychological. But when we were there, like they said, you know, it's we can't give any explanation to why this is happening aside from like your body, like the intensity of the grief, and you need to really take care of yourself and slow down also. And because I wasn't, I guess, I mean, after grief, 2 pregnancies, two
Sure.
toddlers, worrying and, like, functioning, in the house and also on the shlichus. Like I was still trying at the same time to function, and then it was I wasn't taking good care of myself either. So yeah, it felt like I had also just come back from Israel, where the day before I came back, I was sitting in Yerushalayim at a lunch, and they told us that there's a girl who just was run over by a car on Friday
Mm,
and didn't make it.
wow. Wow.
So we went to the people, and the mother was, I mean,
It's okay.
yeah, they were in such shock. Um, and when it happened to me, I didn't. I was in shock, and the way like trauma happens is that your body shuts down in order to survive. It's too
Right.
much. So
Sure.
even the funeral, Shiva, like I was completely. It was an out of body experience. I saw that there were a lot of people there, but I wasn't there. Like I was completely numb, and
Right.
it's what the body does to protect yourself.
Hmm.
So but when I was with this woman, I wasn't numb, and I just processed with her like her initial trauma, and I think that took me already, my already weakened body from grief to complete collapse. I mean, thank God, not complete. I made it,
Right.
Hashem, but it
Right.
was a very big awakening that I had in the hospital there. That I
How
wanted
long
to
were
live.
you? How long were you in the hospital?
So I was in the ICU for a week, and
Hmm.
when they wanted to put me in a different room, it was in the Niagara Falls Hospital. I just moved care to home.
Hmm.
My mother was there, and the doctors, which were they were, my doctor was coming to my house, and it took me 3 or 4 weeks to recover and get up. I mean, I
Wow.
couldn't also move my neck. There was a lot of
Wow.
stiff. Yeah, it was just pain. Like I had crazy medication for pain, just from headache and neck pain and whatever the whole. So I do remember then just realizing that I don't want to die and I want to live.
Right.
So
Wow.
I made a lot of changes after that.
What kind of changes?
Um, just prioritizing my family a lot, um, realizing that yeah, if I'm going to live, I just want it to be a life worthwhile living, like with a lot of just the joy. Like I wanted to see the joy, like yeah, to see the joy in life and to see my kids grow and and take care of myself, my body, my mind. I realized that it's not sustainable, like to just live without taking care of your physical and mental health. So
Hmm.
I really took care of myself after. Like it was, yeah, very radical for me to. I mean, I started exercising more, eating better, um, resting, unapologetic, unapolo- unapologetically resting,
Hmm.
taking time
Hmm.
off, um, taking like not filling my plate used to be full all the time, and just yeah, realizing my human limits, um, so that I can yeah live and thrive and survive. And then I decided also at that time that I'm going to go back to school,
Hmm.
and because I realized that yeah, like this was something I always wanted to do, and I was not feeling like when there is a threat to your life, sometimes you realize that like where your self actualization
Hmm.
potentially is. Like I felt like okay, I don't want to die now. I want to see my kids like grow. I want to be there for my family. I want like that was number one, and also I want to do things like I want to contribute to the world in the ways that I had dreamt of in my childhood or like before, and finish the degrees that I wanted to have to do, and yeah, do that. So I really went. My dreams became very clear, and yeah. So my life is more aligned now with what my dreams are, what my passions are, what my wishes are, what sparks joy.
Wow. Wow. Incredible. So you started taking more care of yourself personally. Like it's interesting because you say, you wanted to live a more worthwhile life. Like you were doing so many worthwhile things, but I guess you weren't. Sometimes we need to take care of ourselves. Not only you were giving and giving and giving to so much to others. I guess now you realized you needed to fill your own plate. Is that it?
Yeah, yeah, I think filling my own plate and doing something that where I'm not necessarily um, it's not a not I'm not gonna say duty, but it's yeah, something different that feeds me
Mhm.
intellectually.
Mhm.
Um, and um, yeah, that's separate from the Chabad house, separate from what
Mhm.
my husband does, separate from that's my own. It's like
That's your
my
own. Right.
yeah. I feel
Right.
I'm not gonna say it's my hobby. Like my supervisor would really hate hearing that I'm doing my grad school as like a hobby.
Right.
It's supposed to be like, full time, your life mission and whatever it is.
Right.
Uh, but it is
But
for me something that fits me, that excites me. It's like recreational in a way that
right.
uh,
Right.
it's a intellectual leisure, which
Sure.
I know those are very bad words for academia, but like, but it's
Right.
yeah, but when I work on
I
it, I
get
don't feel
it.
like it's work. Like
Right.
it,
Something you really enjoy.
it sparks joy.
Right. That's great.
Yeah.
Amazing. I want to hear more about the academic work, but before let's just switch over. You wrote a book together with Rebecca Shapiro. She actually wrote it, but it was with you, with your input on called "It's Not Over When We Say Goodbye," and it was about Musia's passing. What messages you want to share in the book, and what
Uh,
motivated you to write it?
right. Um, so I think that when I was going through it, um, there was a lot of I mean, I had some intuitive ways that I felt like I wanted to memorialize Musia and contribute to my children's integration and healing um,
Sure.
in life. And those were not necessarily like there was no clear guidelines in how to do it. I was in touch then with Dr. Blumenthal from OHEL,
Hmm.
who gave me his endorsement and guidance and counseling in what I wanted to do and how I wanted to do it. And he gave me some advice on how to, talk to my children, normalize things. But there was a lot of pushback or judgment or resistance from people around, from
Hmm.
society, from the community, from I mean, just people's discomfort. Even I mean, some of it was explicit, some of
Why?
it was
What kind of
subtle.
just like what was a pushback against what?
Uh, Against having, in general, like children. Like for me, like Musa was a child. She was 6, and I wanted her to say memorialized among her friends, children, and um, there was some pushback around, you know, having kids maybe attend events that,
What? So like you would do birthday parties for her? Is that what you mean?
yeah, I
Like I
did.
know you. It says in
Yes,
the book like you would do a birthday party when it was her birthday, and you invited
yeah,
children to come, so
to the
people
yard
would
site.
or to the art site, so people were
Yeah.
uncomfortable with their children attending because
Some of them
people.
were not, like some of them were comfortable and encouraged them. And for me, the 1 out of the 10 who was uncomfortable, like gave me like the naysayers had a huge
Mm-hmm.
impact on me because there's
Mm-hmm.
so much insecurity to begin with
Mm-hmm.
on
Sure.
parenting in general and
Sure.
parenting deceased child and memorializing them. It's like, your parent, like already it's the judgment on parenting on top of judgment on grieving
Sure.
combined. It's a lethal combo. And
Right.
and
For
that was,
sure.
yeah, that was very hard for me, like just internal, like I had a lot of anger on people who didn't think that it was for children
Mm.
to memorialize her or grieve her. And they were afraid. I mean, I understand where they were coming from. They were afraid that their children will feel pain or be
Mm.
re-traumatized. A grave site might not be for children. It's death, like anything
Mm.
that has to do with, yeah, like pain, grief, death. They really wanted to protect their children.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end, protecting their children from my child was very hurtful
Mm.
because I didn't choose this, and
Right.
she didn't choose this. And if she imagine any child that know that if God forbid something happens, then they pass away, like they become like a taboo. They become,
Mm,
something that that other their best friends cannot really be part of their, like they're gonna be forgotten. And I felt very responsible for my
mhm,
daughter, like to
mhm,
protect her memory and
mhm.
tell her that this is, yeah.
But you're saying it's not only, I mean, obviously you wanted to protect your daughter, but it's also probably positive for these other children to see that a child who does pass away is memorialized and is not forgotten. And we speak about her and we do mitzvahs in her honor. I mean, this is a way that we can, that the children could learn also about death in a more positive kind of way that isn't so scary, I guess.
Yeah, I think that, and that's something that Dr. Mumental really reiterated many times, that it not only it's not going to damage the kids, but
Mm,
it's giving them, yeah, like positive. I mean, it gives them healthy, uh,
right.
healthy adaptation to grief, to loss. And what I felt is that it was also giving all children a message that if about their own value, that if something
Mm,
ever happened to them, like we would be so devastated because
right.
we love them so much. And it's not like, oh, it's gone. Like, no, like, it's,
Right.
they're so, so important to us. So it gives them a strong message of love and
For
value as
sure.
well.
And it also gives permission to talk about something that maybe is, like you said, is like a taboo. I'm sure children are thinking about it. And by not talking about it, you're kind of giving a message that this is wrong to talk about, which it's
Right.
not.
And that's
Yeah.
something Dr. Mumental was saying is that if a kid is anxious about it, right? If they have like hard feelings about it, not talking about it is not going to make them less anxious. It's just that they're more
Mm,
alone in their
hmm.
anxiety.
Absolutely.
So by
Absolutely.
talking about it, giving language to it, giving even events and opportunities to communally grieve and memorialize Musia, it was very much about giving language and allowing for communal healing for the adults and for the children.
Right.
And the
Right.
kids were very resilient about it. Like all the kids loved coming. They still do. Like this past year was her 14th birthday, and the grade 8 class, like they came. And there was a complete turn around in terms of people's comfort. Like people have really evolved and adapted a lot more to. Like
Hmm.
I don't feel at all alone anymore in the way
Hmm.
I'm doing it. And the contrary, like the book really allowed for professional endorsement and language and tools to be
Hmm.
able to talk to children about grief in a way
Hmm.
that's not scary.
Right. I mean, the Rebbe used to always do yard sites and, you know, birthdays and yard sites of people who obviously passed away. Is that something that you got inspiration from? How the Rebbe looked at it?
I think it is probably part of our it is probably part of um, our traditions and the way it is ingrained in us that a yard site and people who pass away are not gone. There's Vachait and Libo, which means that
Right.
those who live, like, have a responsibility uh,
Sure.
to uh, to contribute to the life that they can no longer live, to their memory. But specifically for children, I looked, I mean, I wanted to make sure that whatever I was doing was also in not hurtful to,
Hmm.
like, spiritually to the soul. And I saw a letter that the Rebbe sent to someone whose child passed away, and they asked how they should celebrate their birthday, and the Rebbe wrote them that they should give tzedakah with the numerical value of the child's name, and
Hmm.
do Hasidic Farbrengen, a gathering and
Hmm.
like a party, like so of a child. So it was very clear,
Right.
that's something that the Rebbe was in line, like in sync
Absolutely.
about, and so I had, yeah, that, like that was a value based, like a lot of my values were cohesive and integrated around this idea. It was more, so it was value based, and I was very determined and clear that regardless of the pushback, I'm going to memorialize her. And and I had professional endorsements. I mean, even from
Sure.
my therapist, and it was very like I knew that I wasn't doing something that was crazy. It was just society that was a little behind. So
Sure.
the book was helpful in making a little bit of change in society, in our
Right.
society,
Wow.
like in the way we address it.
Right. Absolutely. Um, you spoke about how you changed after Monsieur's passing, how you changed, how you decided to deal with by necessity decided to think more about what you wanted in life. Did your relationship with your family or with your husband change in any way after that?
I think also, I mean, it's hard to say like what changed because again, we are in the middle of adulthood where I think a lot of people in their 30s um, have moments of growth of, whatever they cared about in their 20s, they no longer care. I mean, there is like evolution and growth that happens, I think, for a lot of people at my age. So I don't know, like, what is it particularly that changed, but definitely tragedy does bring does open the hearts of
Mm-hmm.
you know those who are affected, and seeing my husband so devastated and brokenhearted was it changed it changed a lot of the way we relate to all of our children, to family, to each other, to our priorities. And he also,
In what
has a
way
lot of
did it change?
empathy. Um, so I said, like, he has also, um, like, seeing like what I went through, obviously evoked a lot of empathy for him to, you know, like not seeing my heart broken again in any like so doing anything that could um like the fragility of life, I think, made us both very aware of what our priorities are
Mm,
and how important relationships are, and also how important our relationship with each other is for my kids, like in terms of
mm,
like we can't like the family is not whole, like, and it is not whole. It's our family pictures are incomplete, and it's never going to be the same. I mean, our nobody wants that. Like what we have is
sure.
very, very, we haven't chosen it. It's every time I look back, I'm like, I really, really wish that was different.
Of course.
But what we have agency over it, to give our kids a good life and a secure home is our relationship. So we did put a
Mm,
lot of work in making sure our relationship was strong and provided a secure base and a good modeling for our children. So we worked a lot
mm,
more in our marriage after,
mm.
in a positive way that's really, I think, yeah, we're both very proud of.
Wow. Incredible. Wow.
Hmm.
Um, can you went through such a tragedy, you went through so much suffering. I mean, you're still going through it because I think the grief never really ends.
Hmm.
What do you draw on when you need to strengthen yourself? Like what teachings, what is there something from your background, from the Rebbe, from Hasidic teachings that you draw on to help you get through it?
Um, I think in general, like just um, like knowing that Hashem is in charge of life, that there's so much that is out of our control, and that everything is part of the master plan, like God's master plan,
Mm-hmm.
is helpful. It wasn't helpful in the beginning. I mean, it
Mm-hmm.
was. I mean, it was helpful in my mind. I know the day that, even the day the accident happened, there were people in our house who, felt who were, just completely shaken and devastated. And I was telling them, whatever happens is Hashem's. Like, there was, I mean, I don't know why, like, I mean, clearly it was, I was trying to calm people down.
Wow.
Um,
How did you have the strength to do that?
I don't know. I just, it was very, I mean, I was myself completely helpless. I've never felt so helpless in my life than
Of
seeing
course.
her pulled out in a stretcher and just asking the paramedics, like, is she gonna make it?
Right. Sure. Sure.
But
Wow.
I feel like I right away surrendered, like, in terms of, I mean, and then I did fight, like, she was in the ICU for 13 days, and we fought with Hashem, like, battled, like, to save her.
Right. Right.
We didn't
Yeah,
give
there
up.
was I mean, I remember that time everyone was davening around the clock, really trying to
Yeah.
mitzvahs were done in her honor and all that. Wow.
So we knew that it's in Hashem's hand, like, she needed a miracle, and we hope that, I mean, we didn't give up, like, till it was complete, like, till her heart stopped.
Right.
Um, but after that, so then I was, like, really trusting in Hashem that, he can make the miracle. It's up to him, and then it's gonna happen. And then when it happened, I was not in that mindset. I was just so
Sure.
angry at Hashem.
Of course.
Yeah, for letting us down,
Of course.
because it's him. Like, he did it
Right.
from A to Z. Like, because a lot of it. I mean, I also dealt with shame. I dealt with guilt and all of that, and to realize. I mean, I think that's natural. Like,
Of course.
um, it's a natural reaction, but at the same time, I mean, I had to do EMDR therapy that after 2 years, because the anger was really taking over my
The
life.
anger at the anger at God or
Uh,
the anger at the
I don't.
world, the
Yeah,
anger at
I
what?
don't. It was just like an angry feeling that was
Mm,
manifesting also against people. Everybody made me angry, like,
right.
whatever they
Right.
did, whatever they were saying. Angry at the doctors, angry at the school, angry at the people who didn't show up, angry at the friends who dropped us, angry at
Of course.
people who didn't mention her. Like, it was just very uncomfortable. It's a very there's one feeling, like, I can't like, that makes me feel very when it doesn't. I mean, I think anger serves a purpose, um, but when it became maladaptive in a way, but I couldn't get rid of it. And
Right.
also the shame part of it, the
Right.
just being, whenever you say your daughter died, and the way she died, it's like, okay, you're not like, which mother,
Right.
loses her
Sure.
daughter to drowning. Like,
Wow.
you didn't watch her. Like, what? You didn't have enough swimming lessons. Like, our role is to protect our children, and the shame that comes when we failed uh,
It's
is
horrible.
very hard to live with. It's like
For
you're
sure.
the worst mother on earth.
Wow.
So to live with
Wow.
that when being a mother is your primary identity, or one of your primary identities, is very, very hard. But those were maladaptive, yeah, defense mechanism of whatever it was, like, consequences of
Mm.
grief, which is normal at first, but usually it subsides, like all this,
Mm-hmm.
the anger, the shame, but I needed more interventions, and I did EMDR therapy, which
Mm-hmm.
directly touches the trauma and the stories we're telling ourselves
Mm-hmm.
through it, and then so that I was able to actually feel less shame. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
zero shame, actually, knowing that
Mm-hmm.
this was not, I did everything as a mother.
Mm-hmm.
Um, she knew how to swim. She was being watched. There was all the things that were, um, yeah, everything was in place, but Hashem had a plan that
Mm-hmm.
we couldn't control. It was really out of our control, and understanding even the timing when my babies were born on her birthday was also a sign to me from Hashem. It's like,
Wow.
I was already pregnant. Like, it was,
Wow.
Hashem planned it all. Like, it was assigned to me. This is all part of a plan I don't have control over.
Right.
So even the plan of her passing. Hashem knew about it, so there was nothing I could have done. And also, it says in Chassidus or Kabbalah that people, it's decided before someone is born when they're going to pass.
Mm.
Like
Mm.
it's already determined. She was supposed to only live here for 6 years, and
Mm-hmm.
how she died afterwards, I was able to see some beauty in the way she died. Like, she was very, very happy, surrounded by friends. She was having fun.
Mm.
It was
Mm.
not traumatic for her. She didn't suffer when she didn't have, the doctor said something happened right away. We don't really know what, but her tube shut down. So, because there's no water in her
Mm-hmm.
lungs, like she didn't swallow or had this kind of drowning. So knowing that she
Mm-hmm.
didn't suffer, and also that we had a time with her in the ICU for 13 days to just be close.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wow.
It didn't happen right away, like, on the spot. Like we still,
Sure.
I slept with her for 13, like I didn't move from her ICU bed, like, and that was a
Wow.
blessing in all of,
Right.
if this was supposed to happen, right?
Right.
Like, so yeah,
Wow.
just being able to see that Hashem is in control and Hashem is taking care of us. And I'm realizing, like, He has been taking care of us since, and knowing the Rebbe has always helped me, and his teachings have always brought me closer to Hashem. Just his love for us, and knowing that there's someone like the Rebbe who cares about us, um, and prays for us, looks after our family, is very helpful and connecting. Like knowing, yeah, we're not alone. Like no matter,
Mm.
yeah,
Wow.
no matter what.
Wow. That's very powerful. Thank you so much for sharing.
Okay.
Wow. What are your dreams for the future? What do you think for yourself, for your children, for your family? What are your thoughts now?
This second, I'm hoping that Mashiach comes and I see my daughter again, really,
Absolutely.
really soon. Um, and otherwise, with Mashiach, also like I just want to see my kids grow healthy physically, mentally, thrive, um, be happy with who they are, um, have meaningful lives, meaningful relationships, just succeed, like be connected to the Rebbe, like, and be proud of who they are.
Mm.
So that's something that drives me a lot, like this hope, and yeah, for my children, and I hope to finish my PhD, next few years. I got quite a little while still to go, but I'm well in the program. And
I know it's about competition. You want to tell us a little about that? It's
uh,
about
yeah, I do have to go soon, but I, yeah, so something that really bothered me when I was a teacher and also as a parent to children who go to school here is the competitive aspect of
mm,
that some competitive elements that our education has,
mm,
uh, and that never sat well with me, and
mm,
I don't know why they're still doing it. So I decided to take some of these years of my life to look more into it, look at the Jewish perspective on it, look at the research, and do my own research to see what are the consequences. Not of, like, often people like have pushback in competition of as if we don't want to build resilience by kids and have like everybody's a winner. It's not about that.
mm.
um, I do believe in having kids take risks and try to thrive, and in different ways, like push them, have some sort of pressure, but not against outdoing others. It's the one that
Right.
having
It's more
rivals.
like competing with yourself, not competing with
Yeah,
everyone else,
competing
so
with
that one's
yourself,
better
having
than the other.
standards. Yeah, like
Mm-hmm.
this metrics of success of being better than others doesn't
Mm-hmm.
serve well in
Mm-hmm.
relationships, in life, and in ways to measure ourselves because we're not all the same. But competition
Right.
is based on measuring people as if everybody's the same,
Right. Wow.
and that doesn't sit well with me conceptually. And also, I think it's damaging to children. It's damaging to
Absolutely.
their self-esteem. It's damaging to their relationship. It's damaging for their anxiety, and also to social inequalities. Because often it's the kids who are privileged that have the support to outdo
The support.
others.
Mm.
So if we're, yeah, if we want to be all on this, yeah, if we want to raise children, to be strong and resilient, and help all children, then
Right.
I think we need to take a critical look at the way other referenced competition is embedded in our system.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Perla, thank you. I know you're rushing off, but thank you so much for joining us today. Do you have a final thought that you want to share with people that you want your message to resonate with?
Not that I can think of. Sorry.
You're very encouraging and inspirational in what you did share with us. I thank you so
Thank you.
much for joining us, and I only wish you nachas from all your children and nachas from yourself, as
Thank
my
you.
grandmother always would say. Joy in what you're doing and joy in life. Thank you
Thank
again for
you.
joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
I hope you enjoyed this podcast with Perla Zaltzman. If you'd like to watch more videos and interviews, please log on to Chabad.org/extraordinary. You can subscribe there to get more, and you can also comment there on your thoughts and your feelings and opinions. We really love to hear your feedback. Thanks for joining.